Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. Today's video is the third in a series where I'm taking an episode from season 8 of American Horror Story Apocalypse, and I am doing makeup, fall kind of inspired makeup, while I talk about it. The palette that I'm using today is the Bésame Agent Carter palette, and I did a lot lighter on my eyes because I wanted to do a deep kind of autumn lip. So if you'd like to see how I got this look and hear me talk a little bit about American Horror Story Season 8 Apocalypse Forbidden Fruit, please keep watching. All right, so we open with not really a montage, but kind of a series of conversations between Langdon and somebody. So we start with Timothy, and Langdon tells Timothy that Mead is the one who's kept he and Emily alive. And I've heard people talking about this on different places. She'd be the right age. Emily I think she'd be the right age, in Roanoke. Lee Harris has a daughter before Flora named Emily who ran away. And I wonder if that Emily, other people are wondering too, and I'm now wondering about that too, if that could be Lee Harris's daughter from Roanoke. Go in with Zero Matter over my whole kind of eye. We're back with Langdon and Gallant talking about his Nana. Michael's implanting memories in Gallant about the fact that she died in her sleep. So we know that he has a lot of power, obviously, but we know more now that he's able to kind of shape we're seeing really for the first time that he's able to shape people's perceptions and memories. We've kind of seen this before, but we're seeing it a lot more now. I'm gonna go in with a big fluffy brush with English and just hit that in my crease. Then we have Mallory and Langdon, and then we go back to Coco and Langdon, and Coco is not saying nice things about Mallory. Mallory's way more sympathetic towards Coco than Coco is towards Mallory. And then we're back with Michael and Coco. So then Michael says to Coco that true darkness requires a certain depth of character, but you're much too shallow for any kind of meaningful negativity. Really interesting. Then we see Langdon and Dinah, and she says it's wonderful to see you again. So it's clear that they know each other from somewhere and we aren't sure where. Then we have Andre and Langdon. So now we learn why Andre's there. He's Dinah's son. So presumably Dinah brought Andre and Stu. Smaller brush, and I'll go in with Midnight Oil. Then we are back to Mallory and Langdon, and he starts kind of mentioning a couple of the Ten Commandments, which is, I mean, the whole series, this whole season is fairly biblical, but it might also be kind of a callback to the Ten Commandments killer in Hotel. And he says that he thinks that she's made for this world. He's touching her face, and he says to her, "You're afraid to accept who you are," and she says that she doesn't know who she is, and that sometimes she feels like there's someone buried inside me, someone trying to claw their way out. And he's touching her, and she says, "Let me go." And then she stands up and she's screaming at him, "Let me go," and kind of pushes him back. And he looks shocked. And then he comes at her and he shows his true face. And then she kind of pushes him back and all the fire happens. And then the expression on Michael Langdon's face is surprise, shock, and fear, it looks like. The only time we've ever seen fear in his face in this season. And he says, "Who are you?" And she says, "I don't know, who are you?" And then she runs away. That was just that one little scene between them is one of my favorites ever in American Horror Story. Then we are, after the credits, back. We see Michael cutting himself on top of the pentagram. So these are the scenes, kind of the little shots that we saw last week when Gallant was in his room kind of touching himself on top of the pentagram, cutting himself with the blood and everything. And I'm gonna go back in with a much smaller brush with Zero Matter just to kind of give myself a little bit more on my lid, and then I'll go in line. So yeah, so he's on this pentagram, cutting himself, asking his father, who I think is supposed to be Satan and not Tate Langdon. I'm not sure how that whole thing works, but he says, "I thought that I destroyed them all." And at this point, we don't know what he's talking about, but I think we can probably figure out, because we know that it's supposed to be a Coven crossover, that he's talking about witches. And he says, "Open my eyes." He's pleading with his father to open his eyes. And then he opens his eyes and they're all black. So I guess his eyes have been opened, in a manner of speaking. Then we hear a voiceover, and it's Mead. And she goes through this series of memories. The bomb swing, she's talking about how much she loves Halloween, how much she has loved Halloween in her life. And the first one that she recalls is Halloween of '62, where she's trick-or-treating, and she's Rosie the robot from the Jetsons, which presumably she was a human and then she became a robot. I'm not sure how that works, but I'm assuming that that's Mead, the human child who is trick-or-treating. And the woman gives her an apple, and she wanted candy. She didn't want an apple. And then the next Halloween is 1968, and this is Rosemary's Baby, which is about witches. And she said that it was when she realized that she liked horror, that she liked being scared, that it made her feel alive. And I think that's true for a lot of us, especially a lot of us ladies, but also gentlemen. But I don't know, I think there's a lot of women that I know like horror a lot more than men. And this guy's kind of feeling her up in the movie theater, and she slaps him. Then the last one is 1988, her first kill. And she was an agent for the Mossad, and she is killing this guy who was a terrorist in Maryland. And it's this really elaborate, choreographed fight sequence. And she says that it was brutal and bloody, of course, but almost romantic too, like a waltz. And the music that's playing is a song called Rose-Colored Glasses by a guy named John Conley. And the lyrics that are playing during this scene are defeated. It's the end of one sentence in the song lyric. When reflections in your eyes show me a fool. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe I feel like we're supposed to be paying attention to the music, and I, in the fullness of time, probably will do kind of a review of the music when we have more of an idea of what the symbolism means. And then she opens the door after she's killed this guy, and she's totally covered in blood, but it's Halloween and the kids think that she looks awesome. And before I do my wig, I'm going to go in with some primer. This is the Smashbox Photo Finish Primerizer, just to let it kind of sit in a little bit. So we're back at the outpost, and it is clear that Mead, who's been doing this kind of voiceover the whole time, really has been talking to Venable. So she has these memories, and she's not sure if they've been programmed or if she actually remembers them. She knows she's a robot or some kind of an android, that she's not fully human, but she has these memories, so she's not sure about what everything means. And then she talks about the fact that she has memories of this blonde-haired boy, and I can feel the love that I have for him, but he's just a blur in my memory. I must have lost him some way, because every time I think of him, I cry. And she says to Venable, what's my purpose? And Venable says, to protect the outpost, like you've always been doing. And then Mead suggests that they kill everyone, even Michael Langdon. She's heard from the kids, from I guess Emily and Timothy, that he has a working computer, and they kill everybody, including Michael. That's her suggestion, that they kill everybody, including Michael, use the computer, and then get to the sanctuary themselves. Just the two of them. And Mead also says that she was programmed to be loyal to Venable, and that she can feel no doubt in herself about that. So she knows that she is programmed to be loyal to Venable. Then we are in a different scene with Billy Eichner with Brock, who is very Mad Max looking, and he is wandering around near an ocean. So I wasn't clear on where the outpost was supposed to be. Somehow I thought it was more inland, but there is an ocean where he's talking, and he says that he's heard rumors of there being some kind of safe place nearby for rich people, and he's looking for his girlfriend. And he gets into this fight with these guys. And it's interesting too, because one of them said that he used to be a special needs, special ed teacher. And it's interesting to kind of see the way that people change when faced with kind of an apocalyptic situation, I suppose is the best way to phrase that. And then as he's kind of finishing killing them off, he sees this carriage, this black carriage with these black horses with the masks on, going away. And so he follows that. And I think what he does is he gets underneath it, because when the alarms start going off and they go outside to see what's inside of it, there's a box inside of it, but then we see Billy Eichner underneath it. They don't see it, but we see him. Then we have a new scene, and we're in that room, the kind of room where they have killed people and tortured people with the drain and the water and the tile and everything. And it's a box of apples, and presumably it came from the overlords, and we'll find out more about that later. They tell Amazon Eve to go outside and take care of the horses before they die, and Billy Eichner attacks her. Brock attacks her and takes her card. I don't know if she's dead, but he now has a way to enter the building with her card key. We're back inside, and Mallory is kind of in this reverie, repeating in her head the conversation that she had with Michael Langdon. She's staring at the fire, and then another servant girl comes in and tells her that Venable called an emergency meeting and they have to go. So they go to the emergency meeting, and she says she's been too punitive, and she says there'll be a celebration this weekend. It's All Hallows Eve. They've lost all track of time in there, or I would assume actually that Venable and Meade have not lost track of time. But I'm also assuming that it's not really Halloween, because we've seen in several seasons of American Horror Story the rule about Halloween being kind of the one night that the veil is lifted and that the dead can walk amongst the living and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm thinking that it's probably not Halloween. She's just kind of tricking them into having this party. And participation is mandatory, and they have to go make costumes. It's going to be I think it's a Victorian theme, fancy dress theme. Everything they do is fancy dress. Then we're with Coco and Gallant, and he's making her all Marie Antoinette-ish with her hair and with her dress and everything. She still has to get the dress made. But what Coco starts saying is that maybe the party is where they're going to announce who's going. And Gallant says that he thinks that the people who are going already know, and he's thinking that he's going to be one of the ones to go because of the encounter that he had with Rubberman. Mallory says to Gallant, wait, did something happen to you? Because it seems like there's something different that happened with Mallory and Gallant than happened to Coco. And it's true, but the thing that happened between Gallant and Michael did not happen, obviously, between Mallory. So we then have a flashback to her interview with the fire in the room. And she says, I think I set the room on fire. I know it's impossible, but I think I did it with my mind. And maybe it's the radiation, maybe I'm Dark Phoenix, which is an X-Men reference. I'm not sure what that means in terms of this episode or this series, but she's wondering if she's been poisoned by or maybe she wonders if she's been mutated by the radiation. And then Coco's kind of demanding that Mallory show her tricks, and she can't do it. It's probably something that comes up around rage or fear or something like that. Ready, set, brow. Then we have another break, and we come back, and we're at the party, and everyone's excited to see the apples. They haven't seen fresh produce in 18 months. And so then Venable gives this very heavy-handed speech, and I'll read it to you. She says, tonight is All Hallows Eve, which again, I don't think it is, because I think that in this show they really use Halloween to allow characters who are dead to come back, and although who knows. But she says, tonight is All Hallows Eve, which marks the beginning of the dark half of the year, with the boundary between this world and the other thins, and lost souls pierce the firmament, desperate to find their way home. It is a night to remember the dead, and there have been far too many to mourn, but also to celebrate that we have yet to join them. We delight in the small things that were once taken for granted: to eat, to drink, music and dance. Everyone, and I mean everyone, should savor this night as if it were their last. Okay. So then Kevin and Kwan, the sculpting powder and light. Then the song that's playing is Bread, Baby I'ma Want You. And the lyrics are, it comes on kind of in the middle. Not the middle, but not at the very beginning. But I just can't live without your loving and affection, giving me direction, like a guiding light to help me through the darkest hour. Lately I'm a-praying that you'll always be a stayin' beside me. Used to be my life was just emotions passing by, and then the music kind of fades out a little bit, comes back in to really knowing why. And then a figure asks Coco to dance. A masked figure asks Coco to dance. And she assumes that it's Michael because he's not at the party. She just starts going off about the fact that she assumes that she's been chosen and she went to Harvard, so she understands what the process is like. And she offers sexual favors, something that she hasn't given to her boyfriend even. We're then in a room alone with Coco and Brock, and she says, I have to warn you, I have a short tongue and a sensitive gag reflex. And he says, I know, and she recognizes his voice. Gonna go in with the Surreal Halo blush, and she's talking a lot about the fact that she missed him and that she had to put the memory of him away in a place where all the things that she loved but was never going to see or have again lived, like sushi. And then he kills her. He puts, I guess, a knife or an axe or something in her forehead. Then we're back at the party, and people are bobbing for apples, but they're instructed not to eat them until everybody has one. And then we learn that the way that they poisoned the apples was with the snake venom. So they're back in that room with the tile, and they're extracting venom from the snakes, and that's the way that they're going to kill them, by injecting the venom into the apples with needles. Then everyone has the apples, and they eat the apples, and everyone starts dying very violently and disgustingly. Then we go to commercial again. Meade and Venable are in the room with all the bodies, and Meade says at least we don't have to clean them up because they're assuming that they're going to the sanctuary. You go to Langdon's room with the gun. The plan is to kill him and then the two of them will leave. And she says to Langdon, Venable says to Langdon, we've made the selections and you haven't made the cut. Venable says Miss Mead, and that's her command, her cue to take out the gun and shoot Michael. But then he's looking at her and it's clear that he's doing something to make her turn the gun to Venable. And she shoots Venable. Not sure if Venable's dead, but she definitely shoots Venable. And she's as shocked as anyone that she did it. She doesn't know why she did it. And Michael says, you were obeying commands. You were obeying commands just like you were programmed to do my commands. So looks like he's the one who programmed her. And he says, did you enjoy executing the poison apple plan as much as I enjoyed coming up with it? So then that suggests that he implanted that idea in Mead and that he sent the apples and that the apples were there. They weren't really there mysteriously. They were only there mysteriously because Mead didn't have access to that memory or that thing that he planted in her. She thought it was her own idea just when the apples happened to coincidentally arrive. And she's very confused. Mead is. She says, I know I'm just a machine. And he gets really angry and says, never say that. He says, I gave them a prototype to model, someone very near and dear to me. And then she realizes that beautiful blonde boy that she remembers but can't see a face, it's all very blurry, that's him, and that he's the one who got away. He's the one who is playing in her memory without a face. I'm gonna line with Urban Decay Blackmail, and then I'm gonna do lipstick with ColourPop Pencil Me In. I'll see you on the other side. So he made this prototype based on this person from his childhood, someone very near and dear to me. They're both crying. I don't know if this is supposed to be Constance or if there's somebody else. Could it be Billie Dean? I don't know who it could be. It's probably Constance. And she says, why? Why did you do this? And he says, to protect you and the plan. But now it's time to remember it all. I lost you and I couldn't bear it. I can't imagine a new world without you by my side. The only woman who ever really understood me, who ever really loved me. And so it's the two of them, and then we're back in the room with all the dead people. The song changes to She's a Rainbow by the Rolling Stones, which, again, this is another song that didn't really hit me as much as the other songs in the other two episodes have hit me so far in terms of relevance, but I'll definitely look back into this later. And then the witches enter, and it's Cordelia and Myrtle and Madison Montgomery, and Cordelia says, find our sisters, and they find them, and then necromancy, and it is Coco and Mallory and Dinah who are awoken. And I think we obviously already knew about Mallory, but we didn't know about, we kind of maybe knew about Dinah, but I didn't know about the Coco. Was a surprise to me. And then Madison comes up to Mallory and says, surprise bitch, I bet you thought you'd seen the last of me. And then it goes dark. So yeah, I am really liking this. I am liking it more and more for as we see each episode and more things unfold. And yeah, let me know what you think about it. Thank you so much for watching. A lot to do in the world, a lot to do on YouTube, and it means a lot that you took some time to spend with me today. Take care, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.